In Nepal, it is nearly impossible to find a village that hasn't been touched by Ncell. The network serves roughly 13 million customers and sustains more than 100,000 jobs across the country. Ncell's financial contribution is massive, paying roughly 375 billion rupees into the national treasury. But a timer is ticking on its 25-year license. When this clock hits zero in 2086, the company's entire physical infrastructure transfers directly to state ownership. This looming deadline has created a high-stakes standoff, turning a successful private utility into a pawn in a battle over state control. The government's track record is concerning. Previous telecom ventures were essentially abandoned after falling under state oversight, leaving their customers without reliable service. By taking an aggressive stance against its largest taxpayer, the state signals to international entities that their investments in Nepal lack long-term security. Moving to nationalize a thriving, foreign-backed project creates a ripple effect. It threatens the stability of the everyday businesses seen here and undermines Nepal's standing in the global financial community. The legal battle centers on Section 33 of the Telecommunications Act. It states that after 25 years, if a telecom company has more than 50% foreign ownership, it becomes government property. For most of its history, the Malaysian firm Axiata held an 80% stake in Ncell, placing it well above that threshold. To avoid the 2086 deadline, Axiata sold its entire 80% stake to Spectralite UK, a company owned by a non-resident Nepali. Ncell's legal team argued that because the shares were now tied to a Nepali owner, the foreign investment had dropped below 50%, effectively protecting the company from nationalization under the existing law. While the law restricts long-term foreign ownership, it doesn't explicitly prevent a company from selling shares locally to comply with the threshold. The government refused to recognize the sale, claiming Ncell failed to get the necessary prior approval for the transfer. However, the state's financial actions tell a different story. Even as regulators blocked the deal, the large taxpayer's office accepted 1.69 billion rupees in capital gains tax from that very transaction. To bypass this ownership loophole entirely, the government cabinet abruptly introduced a highly specific new regulation known as Rule 7A. Rule 7A changes the criteria for nationalization. It dictates that ownership is no longer judged by the current shareholders, but by the investment ratio at the time the license was first issued. Ncell is now challenging this in court, arguing that the government must follow established legal precedents and the specific language of the original act. Changing the rules of a 25-year contract in the final 3 years creates an environment where no legal agreement is truly final. Beyond the legal specifics of Ncell, this conflict is creating broader economic consequences. If a government can retroactively alter its laws to claim a successful private asset, it raises a difficult question for any investor. Why would you ever bring your capital here? This dispute is happening just as Nepal is attempting to expand high-speed 4G and 5G data access to its remote provinces, a project that requires billions in sustained international funding. Attempting to seize a billion-dollar company for short-term gain risks causing long-term damage to Nepal's credibility in the global market. There are ways to resolve this without nationalization. The government could review the cabinet's recent conditions and annul the retroactive Rule 7A. One logical compromise is a public offering. Floating over 50% of shares on the stock market allows the Nepali public to own the company directly. This legally transforms Ncell into a Nepali-owned company, satisfying the law while keeping infrastructure managed by a proven private operator. Governance is most effective when it regulates private companies for the public benefit, rather than simply absorbing them. If the state forces Ncell into the same decline seen with its previous failed telecom projects, 13 million everyday users will pay the price for a disconnected future.